Everyone, welcome to today's video. So today we're going to talk about basically my first impressions on Title Update 10, and I'm going to juxtapose a few things because we've been talking about these things since before this patch came out. And one of the things I have to start out this video with is the Division 2 is the luckiest, most broken, and most imperfect game that has ever been made in history. And this is the Division franchise as a whole, but more specifically the Division 2. So remember when we were going through a lot more of a terrible patch or terrible quality of game in the Division 2 earlier this year and late last year? Most of the community had already set their sights on moving on to other games once they released. But you will not believe that 2 or 3 of the biggest titles that were supposed to be released in Q1/Q2 of this year basically got delayed and have been delayed till the end of the year. Okay, first of all, Final Fantasy VII got a little shift. The Last of Us 2 got moved. Cyberpunk 2077 got its first delay, and then Cyberpunk 2077 basically got a second delay, and even Marvel's Avengers also got another delay. Now, for The Last of Us 2, because of the scenario around it, they had to move it up, but by and large, the community of gamers have spoken. Many people overwhelmingly did not want that game for what it was, because the game is supposedly a story-driven game. Gameplay in The Last of Us is not the selling point. Story was the selling point. There are many games like that where the story is their selling point, and then there are many games where the gameplay is their selling point. The Division 2 story is not what we're here for. We're here for solid mechanics, solid gameplay, solid execution, and no errors and no bugs. That's what we're here for. But a game like Destiny, basically uses some of its story plots to push more gameplay and other mechanics, but story is not the main aspect of it. Yes, they have lores, but that's not what that is. Now, if you think about all of this, you think about how Title Update 10 basically dropped and the changes that have been made, I think we're in a slightly more satisfactory point than we were pre-Title Update 10. Now, it's not where it needs to be as a patch, don't get me wrong. At first, when the patch came out, it seems like the enemy NPCs may have received some kind of a tune-up, where some mechanics regarding their accuracy, some mechanics regarding their aggressiveness, some mechanics that were basically tuned down in TU9 seem to have been reverted but unannounced. And so that's my take, reverted, unannounced, possibly. I'm not saying that this was definite, but I'm saying this is what it felt like. But then you look at the new systems that have already been added pre-raid, and I can say that these new systems, players are definitely enjoying them. There are new talents, there are new weapons, there are new gear sets, and there's even a new brand. And to me, for something that is somewhat, in quote, free, I think it's a decent step towards the right direction. And then the place that comes in where I say this game is absolutely lucky is the fact that Cyberpunk 2077 has gotten its second delay from September of this year to November of this year, which has given the development team for the Division 2 more time to pick up their slack. And I would say this is where I think the luck of this game has basically shown a lot. And I think if you say the Division is lucky, you also have to be willing to admit and say putting a AAA game to the market audience is a big, huge problem. And I think more than anything, it has shown Ubisoft's stealth superiority in actually delivering games. Now, I didn't say in delivering the best quality games. Don't go out there saying that. That's not what I said. I said it shows their superiority in actually delivering games. The problem, though, that they've had is many of the games come out right off the bat. they're a mess, and then they clean them up as they're going, which I think is, a very terrible reality, but it is a reality in software development, according to many of you that do engage in software development. And so Title Update 10, to me, even at its initial instance, seems to me to be a very decent step in the right direction. I know many people have their faults and their problems with the game, but you can't deny that the mechanics, the changes that we have right now, the way the game plays, the loot reward system, and a whole bunch of aspects regarding difficulty, you can't argue that those things are not set to benefit players the way things currently stand. If you look at the way the loot quality is, I think right now there's a 50-50, struggle between players who are saying we don't seem to like the quality of the loot versus players who say they seem to like the quality of the loot, which if you look in the past, it was more like 80 to 90% of people who thought that the loot was just pure trash. If you get what I mean. Now more people are saying the loot seems to be a little bit more worth your while than back then. And so if we're getting more quality loot and more of the player base is saying that they appreciate the way the loot goes, I think that's another thing we can check off the box. It'll be better if we actually had the exact kind of loot that we wanted, the exact kinds of customization, optimization, and all the other things. Not saying that there's no room for improvement, just saying that there seems to be some kind of improvement at least that is pushing towards the right direction. I will say though, Title Update 10 is not, the initial release anyways, pre-raid, is not without its shortcomings. Don't get me wrong, there are shortcomings in this patch. The fact that PvP is not receiving any game mode is a shortcoming, because there is a PvP community in this game. The marketing and the initial advertising for this game showed a dark zone, showed PvP, and PvP modes were added in the game. You would have thought that with the multiple content releases we've seen for PvE, we would at least see one PvP game mode, and not just one PvP game mode, but a game mode that a lot of people have actually been asking for. Last Stand is one that is really popular. Some people said, I didn't play Division 1 Last Stand, even I didn't play Division 1 PvP. I played Last Stand a lot on PlayStation. Many of you don't know because I was not making videos of it, nor was I talking about it, because I played with friends and that was for fun. So if anything will make me, a very hardcore PvE player, go into any kind of PvP, you should understand that that PvP mode, or whatever it is, PvPvE mode, is actually pretty good. And that Last Stand was something that everybody could rally around because they designed it in a way that everybody could actually participate. So the people who wanted to go out there and jump in front of other players could basically take out players and fight PvP, whereas the other folks who wanted to just go ahead and do logistics, gather points, they all were working in a synergy to keep teams winning. And I think if they bring out something like that and market it, it will definitely work because it has the PvP PvE component of it. The example that I will contrast this with is the Gambit in Destiny 2. I'm so thankful for my friends here in the community that took me to Destiny 2 and said, hey, you got to play Gambit. And I played Gambit. And even though they're not the same iteration, they still carry some of the, underlying concepts that come with them. That's, Gambit, you play PvE, but then there is a PvP aspect that comes in from time to time that every player or some players have to contend with. And I think if Title Update 10 had shown up with one more, game mode that was maybe pure PvP or even a PvP versus, PvE style, composition, I think it would have really been good. And, with all the rumors of them working on a tower and all that stuff, I think they need to bring out that content with a PvP mode and then a PvP VE mode, something like, how they did Skirmish and Last Stand back in Division 1. This is something that I feel like there's an opportunity for more growth in the Division 2, because with all the postponing of all these games left and right and all this, whatever the reasons are for, many are saying now that Cyberpunk 2077, it seems like the devs are postponing it to be able to launch with the new gen. That's probably the case. I think it's from a business perspective, it's bound to be able to sell more copies, sell more, hype or whatever it is. If you ride the train of all the advertising going on, Xbox is going to be advertising a whole bunch of stuff. So probably they want to be shipping Cyberpunk 2077 along the lines with that. They probably will be willing to sell Cyberpunk 2077 custom consoles. So these are probably the reasons. Avengers right now is also in a place where people are wondering how the quality of the game will be because they decided to go games as a service. No kind of AAA game is easy. Plus, games as a service is actually the worst that any company can decide to take on because it's actually very difficult to manage. And so Destiny and Division 2, they've gone through their ups and downs, and they're still going through their ups and downs right now. And so I fear for that Avengers game that it may not be able to keep up with the market competition. I'm keeping my fingers crossed though, hoping that they can succeed. Because if they succeed and bring one more quality AAA, games as a service style MMO game, I think it's going to provide some competition and make the other existing MMOs, to basically fasten their seatbelts and get to work. And, I think that's what the Division developers need. I think they need a kick in the pants, if anything. But so far, with all the postponing of these games, it kind of brings you back full circle to say, okay, Is this because AAA games are difficult, or is the Division 2 just lucky? Either way, you got to pick one answer. They're probably very lucky because there's so much that this game could have accomplished, but has not met in its potential. So if you ask me how was Title Update 10, I'll tell you Title Update 10 is a decent title, is a decent update, but there is still room for improvement. And the room for improvement is basically there within the talk in the community. The room for improvement is there as a blueprint for the devs to follow. And they've been given a third and a fourth and a fifth lifeline to continue to make this game better. And they need to take that opportunity rather than just throw it aside. So that's basically my thoughts. Let me hear what your thoughts and your first impressions of Title Update 10 pre the raid actually is. When the raid comes out, we'll talk about more things regarding that, talk about the raid, hopefully soon. And that's basically it for me. Thank you so much for your time and audience. I appreciate you guys so much. We're pushing on 30K. You guys are champions. Thank you for those of you who've supported the channel since day one. I really do appreciate you guys so much. And like I said, I'm out. Peace.